In the glittering, often ruthless world of show business, few stars have shone as brightly or as long as Marie Osmond. For over 6 decades, she's been America's sweetheart, the girl next door with the voice of an angel and a smile that could light up any stage. But behind that famous smile, the sold-out shows and hit records, lies a story of deep struggle, unimaginable loss, and a quiet strength that has defined her just as much as her fame. It's a life lived entirely in the public eye, where every win and every loss is magnified 1,000 times over. Yet through it all, there has been one constant, one anchor in the storm of her life. A man who came back after decades apart, not just to rekindle an old flame, but to offer a silent act of devotion that no one else could. In a moment of raw honesty, Marie Osmond confessed he was the only one who could do that for her. So, what was this singular act? What could a man from her past give her that fame and fortune couldn't buy? To understand the weight of this confession, we have to go back through the decades of heartache and the crushing pressure of a life lived under a microscope, to find the profound meaning behind a love story that was, against all odds, given a second chance. After everything she'd been through, the heartbreak, the loss, Marie Osmond thought she'd never find that kind of love again. The world watched her grow up, watched her marry, watched her mourn. The stage lights were blinding, but her private world was often dark. And then, Steve Craig came back into her life. Decades after their painful divorce, the first man she ever loved, the father of her firstborn son, was standing there again, and with him she found a peace that had escaped her for years. As she would later reveal, with the quiet confidence of a woman who had finally found her safe harbor, he was the only one who could do that for me. The confession hung in the air, a testament to a bond that time couldn't erase and a mystery begging to be solved. What did he do? What was the one act that could heal a lifetime of wounds? To really get the weight of Marie Osmond's story, you have to understand the pressure cooker of her childhood. Born on October 13, 1959, Olive Marie Osmond was the only daughter among 9 children in a devout Mormon family destined for stardom. While other kids were playing in the park, Marie was learning harmonies and stage cues. Her older brothers had already formed the quartet that would become the world-famous group, the Osmonds. For her, fame wasn't just a dream, it was the family business. At just 3 years old, Marie made her debut on The Andy Williams Show, a cherubic toddler pushed into the national spotlight. From that moment on, her life wasn't really her own. It belonged to the public, to producers, and to the relentless schedule of a performer. Her childhood was a blur of tour buses, recording studios, and TV sets. This all-consuming career created what she would later call a lost childhood. The bubbly, smiling persona was her brand, but keeping it up was a grueling, constant pressure. The world saw a perfect, wholesome idol, but behind the curtain, a young girl was dealing with insecurities that were amplified by the harsh glare of the industry. That pressure exploded in the 1970s with the Donnie and Marie Show. At just 16, Marie was a primetime co-host and a full-blown teen idol. The show was a huge hit, but it was also a nightmare. In a now infamous incident, a producer took her aside and cruelly criticized her weight. "You're an embarrassment to your family," he reportedly told the teenager. "You're fat." He threatened that if she didn't lose 10 pounds, the show would be canceled, putting hundreds of people out of a job. This brutal criticism triggered a devastating battle with eating disorders. To meet the impossible demands, Marie began starving herself, sometimes for days, dropping to a skeletal 93 pounds. This struggle with her body image and self-worth would haunt her for years, a painful secret hidden behind the sequins and stage lights. The trauma wasn't just psychological. She later revealed in her memoir, Behind the Smile, that she had also been sexually abused as a child by people who were temporarily in her life. This abuse left deep, invisible scars that damaged her spirit and her ability to trust, affecting her for decades. This was the world Marie Osmond lived in, a gilded cage where her worth was judged by ratings and dress sizes, and where private pain was masked by a professional smile. She was treated like a product, even in life-threatening situations. She recounted a terrifying story of filming a commercial in Japan where the boat capsized, forcing her to keep working despite being severely dehydrated and blistered from the sun. This relentless drive to perform, no matter the cost, became the backdrop of her life. It was a foundation built on scrutiny and a deep-seated need to be perfect for everyone else. This lifelong burden set the stage for the heartbreak and the ultimate healing that was still to come. In the middle of this career whirlwind, a new personal chapter opened. Marie met Steve Craig, a handsome basketball player from Brigham Young University. For a young woman who had only known show business, Steve was something different, a piece of the normal life she desperately craved. He wasn't part of the Osmond machine. He saw her not as Marie Osmond, the star, but just as Marie. Their romance moved fast. On June 26, 1982, at just 22 years old, Marie married Steve Craig at the Salt Lake Temple with over 4,000 guests at the reception. To the world, it looked like a fairy tale. Less than a year later, their son, Stephen James Craig, was born in 1983, and their happiness seemed complete. But the pressures that had defined Marie's life didn't just disappear. If anything, they got worse. Industry voices told her that being a young mother would kill her career. The fairy tale started to crack. The marriage began to fall apart under the weight of public scrutiny and their own private struggles. Rumors circulated at the time about the reasons for the split, but for Marie, the result was the same. The divorce was finalized in October 1985, just over 3 years after their spectacular wedding. The heartbreak was devastating. In her faith, divorce was heavily discouraged, which added a spiritual crisis to her personal pain. She felt like she had failed not just in her marriage, but in the eyes of her community. All of a sudden, I'm a single mom and I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, let alone feed my kid, she later recalled. The safety net she thought she had was gone. Driven by the need to provide for her son, Marie got back to work. She started buying outfits from stores and hand-sewing sequins on them to create her own stage costumes. It was a raw display of her will to survive. Within a couple of years, she had successfully reinvented herself as a country music star, proving her critics wrong. She would marry again, but the wound from her first divorce ran deep. It was her first love and her first major heartbreak, played out for the world to see. She had given her heart to a man from outside her world, hoping for a different life, only to find herself alone again, facing the same old pressures. After her divorce from Steve Craig, Marie entered what could be called her wilderness years, a time of immense challenges that would test her strength to its absolute limit. In 1986, she married music producer Brian Blosel. She later admitted she probably rushed into it, advising others to take their time after a breakup. "You really need time on your own," she said. This second marriage lasted 21 years, and they had 7 children together, 2 biological and 5 adopted. On the surface, it looked like she had built the large, happy family she'd always wanted. But behind closed doors, things weren't perfect. Marie has since said that it was not a happy union, and that the home she created was a facade to a marriage that wasn't happy for 20 years. Her children even pleaded with her to leave the relationship. During this time, Marie also faced one of her most terrifying battles: severe postpartum depression. After the birth of her son Matthew in 1999, she fell into a darkness so deep it nearly consumed her. In one harrowing moment, she handed her baby to the nanny, got in her car, and drove up the California coast, unsure if she would ever come back. Her honesty about this struggle later became a lifeline for other women, but at the time, it was a lonely, terrifying experience. The pressures never stopped. In 2007, she fainted on live television while competing on Dancing with the Stars, a shocking public glimpse of the toll her life had taken. Her divorce from Brian Blosel happened that same year, another public split that left her feeling like she had failed all over again. But the most devastating blow was yet to come. On February 26, 2010, Marie's world completely shattered. Her beloved son Michael died by suicide at the age of 18. Michael had been struggling with depression and, as Marie later revealed, was relentlessly bullied for his sobriety. The grief was an all-consuming force. "You can't breathe," she said, of the shock. In an interview, she shared the gut-wrenching detail that Michael had called her the day before he died, telling her he felt lonely and had no friends. When she made the difficult decision to return to the stage just a week after his funeral, she was attacked by critics. She explained her choice wasn't for her, but for her other children, to show them that life, no matter how painful, had to go on. This period was the climax of her life's problems. The public scrutiny, the private heartbreak, the immense pressure, it all culminated in an unimaginable tragedy. She had faced divorce and depression, but losing a child was a pain on a completely different scale. It was from this place of absolute devastation that a light from her distant past would reappear, offering a quiet, steady hand to help her heal. After her second divorce in 2007, and while still navigating the profound grief of losing her son, Marie Osmond was certain she would never marry again. The pain of 2 divorces had seemingly closed that door for good. But as she would later reflect, God has his timing. The person who reconnected her past and future was her son Stephen. Because she and Steve Craig shared a child, they had stayed in touch over the years. But it was in the dark days following Michael's death that Steve re-entered her life in a much bigger way, offering comfort and support when she needed it most. Their son was key in bringing them back together. They started dating again, secretly at first, for about 2 years. This private courtship, away from the public eye, let them rediscover each other. Not as the young, pressured couple they once were, but as 2 adults who had lived and lost. The turning point came when their son, Stephen, announced he was getting married. And so, on May 4th, 2011, 26 years after they divorced, Marie Osmond and Steve Craig remarried in a small private ceremony. The date was chosen to honor her late mother, Olive, and her son, Michael, as it was both of their birthdays. "It was important that both Michael and my mom were with us on this special day," she said. In a move that perfectly captured the spirit of their reunion, Marie wore the same Rhett Turner wedding dress she had worn in 1982. She said she found it by chance in a box in her garage just 5 days before the ceremony. It wasn't about recreating the past, but about acknowledging their story had never really ended. For Marie, this marriage was the solution to a life lived in chaos. It brought her stability, peace, and healing. She described Steve as the sweetest man I know, someone who lives to serve and really listens. The love she found with him wasn't the whirlwind romance of their youth. It was quiet, steady, and deeply comforting. They found joy in simple things, like watching Netflix or going camping. "He's my best friend," she stated. "He loves me for me and I love him for him, and he makes me laugh." After decades of being Marie Osmond, the performer, she could just be Marie. So we come back to the heart of it all, to Marie's emotional confession. He was the only one who could do that. To me, what was this one thing that only Steve Craig could do? It wasn't a grand public gesture. It had nothing to do with money or fame. It was something much deeper, something that spoke directly to the oldest wounds of her past. The that in her. Confession was the act of providing a quiet, unshakable sanctuary. For her entire life, Marie Osmond was a performance. From the age of 3, she was taught to smile for the camera and push through the pain. Everyone, producers, fans, even family, saw her through the lens of her celebrity. Steve Craig was the only one who could truly see past all of that because he knew her before it all. He fell in love with a girl named Olive Marie, not the global superstar. When he came back into her life, especially after her son Michael's death, he didn't see a celebrity to console. He saw the woman he had once loved, broken and grieving, and he simply stood with her in the darkness. What only he could do was love her without an agenda. He didn't need anything from Marie Osmond. This time around, he was just there to listen and to provide a sense of normalcy that had been missing for most of her life. He was a connection to a simpler time, a living reminder of the young woman who existed before all the layers of trauma and pressure were piled on top. This quiet, unconditional support was the antidote to a life lived under a microscope. In a world that always demanded more from her, Steve's presence demanded nothing. He was her best friend, the person she could do nothing with and feel completely happy. He gave her a space where she didn't have to be on. She could just be. He healed her by loving the part of her that wasn't for sale. That was the one thing only he could do. He let her finally come home to herself. The story of Marie Osmond and Steve Craig is more than a Hollywood romance. It's a powerful testament to second chances. It shows that sometimes the best way forward is to lovingly revisit the past and reclaim the parts of ourselves we thought were gone forever. Marie's life, marked by incredible success and incredible pain, found its balance in a love that was patient enough to wait for over 2 decades. Her confession reveals a beautiful truth. Real healing often comes not from big gestures, but from the quiet, steady presence of someone who sees us for who we truly are. In Steve, Marie found more than a husband. She found a safe harbor from the storm of a public life. He didn't erase her scars, but he loved her with them, and in doing so, he gave her the strength to carry on with grace. Their story is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to find peace, to forgive, and to believe in the miracle of coming home. If Marie Osmond's journey of resilience and love moved you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. What does a second chance mean to you? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the incredible lives behind the spotlight. Click the notification bell so you never miss an update.